The Toronto Maple Leafs have made some sneaky good moves as following what has been a crazy and hectic last 24 hours, 48 hours for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have gotten some more steals in the draft. We're going to break down exactly what those steals are, as one player in particular has fans very ecstatic, as well as a few other things in this episode, folks. Before we get to it all, if you're part of the percentage, aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been beasts with the support lately. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you guys again for your continued support. Darius, we're in the middle of a crazy Mitch Marner saga right now. We're going to take a step back and cover some of the draft moves that the Leafs have made because they have done so in a very impressive manner here. They managed to pull off what has been a very, very solid haul of players. And let's dive right into it. Let's not waste any more time. Now, let's start with the player we already covered, but we have some comments from him. Koblar, we're going to go ahead and say for now until we get full pronunciation, but he says he liked the Leafs as a kid, though he has no favorite player, has a pic of himself in Toronto with a sweater as a kid, said his dad is starting to joyful yelling at the TV after he was picked 64th. So it seems like we got a very, very good, person from all accounts, of course, good player, there with the 64th pick, but also they managed to snag another steal. They got Tyler Hopkins. You can see this here from Stephen Ellis. They get Tyler Hopkins, who was chosen 86, and he was Bob McKenzie's 52nd ranked prospect. According to Elite Prospects, is a low and stable skating posture combined with physical abilities enables Hopkins to win the battles for possession. He cuts through heads, seals the puck away, and escapes with it. Darius, you're excited about this one. He was ranked a lot higher than fans initially thought, and he ultimately got snagged by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, this is a scenario where a really good player falls into the Toronto Maple Leafs lap, basically. And besides all the skill and all that I want to get into in a second, he's from Campbellville, so he's from the area in between, obviously Milton and Guelph. He grew up a huge Leafs fan. There's a video floating around right there, recently of him as a kid shooting pucks in, I guess, his front yard skating rink or something like that. And he's wearing an Austin Matthews jersey, which is pretty crazy. And he's a kid, by the way, because this year's draft class is obviously 2007 born. So, I thought that was pretty cool. He's a huge Austin Matthews fan and just a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he said this is like a tremendous honor, and he's like couldn't be more ecstatic to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, you want to draft players that want to be Toronto Maple Leafs and bring that skill. And like you said, like, he brings that physicality. He's a great two-way player as well. And I could see him at some point being a middle six forward somewhere. He could play as high as a second line on that left wing there. So I think this is a really, really good draft pick for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Really happy about this one. I wouldn't say he fell too far, obviously. Like this is kind of, where he was probably going to get picked or close to it. But obviously a couple teams passed on him and he fell into the lap of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, you want guys who grew up here wanting to be Toronto Maple Leafs to be on the team. He's going to bring all of that. I feel like he's really going to go into next season with the Kingston Frontenacs. Plays in the OHL, by the way. So if you have invested interest, want to go watch him next season, plays in the OHL. You could probably go watch him close to where you live. But obviously he's going to take a step next year. That's going to be exciting to watch and see how he kind of dominates the OHL and with his skill set. So should be fun. Another guy who's going to win puck battles. That's been a theme for the Leafs, especially in this year's draft. So love this one.
Yeah, two-way center relies on relying on the D zone. Hopkins will only really be a support player in the NHL, but his two-way game makes him very useful. Just an absolute, steal. And again, very good job and a good first impression for Leach here with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you can see here some more details in case you're running 51 points in 67 games. I really do like the overall package that he brings. Hopkins plays a cerebral game to complement a high compete level. And you're hearing, and feel free to read the rest, you're hearing some good words for someone who got drafted 86th overall. And of course, seems like there's a lot more, info out there for him as opposed to Koblar, which is interesting in the way that kind of, the under the radar signings that, or I guess rather the draft picks that they have made and the moves that they have made here. But let us know down below if you're excited for Tyler Hopkins, a very intriguing name and one that I'm very happy. And he was also a fan of the Leafs growing up, and that was his favorite team. So a couple of Leafs fans there, or maybe Koblar was just saying that because he was drafted with the Leafs, but I believe both of them. And of course, Tyler Hopkins, like you mentioned, he has the potential here to be a very useful player at the NHL level. And it seems like that's what they're going for here. Players that might take a little bit, but have the intangibles and the tangibles that allow them to be very, very good. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. 51 points in 67 games. He was ranked 65th according to, Ryan's scouting here. I mean, Bob McKenzie had him at 52nd. So I think they got a bit of a steal with this one. But let's dive into their other pick now, 137. This one is William Belly. And you can see this here, 6'4", 225 pounds, Notre Dame commit, tallied 4 goals, 16 points, and 67 penalty minutes in 55 games. And he lived in China until his family moved to the States in 2015. So Darius, yet another interesting pick here. And this is their first defenseman of the draft. Or rather, not their first defenseman of the draft. They've drafted a bunch of people, but a very interesting one nonetheless.
Yeah, great draft pick here as well. Interesting story. Like you saw there, he was living in China until he was 15 years old. And this is a guy that, you probably want to stay out of the box. You don't want a Max Domi type of player where you're taking, untimely penalties or anything like that and spending a lot of time in the box. But that also tells you that he's, he likes to play on the edge. And I think that's a good thing and something that the Leafs want to add more of. And of course, the NHL is kind of going back to the more rough and tumble style of the early 2000s to a degree. Of course, there's still speed and skill, but it's not, what it was in 2015, 2016, where it's small speed and skill. You need that physicality now in your lineup as well. And a lot of teams are recognizing that. And the Leafs recognize that with this draft pick. So I also like this one. The Leafs hit on almost, I really like every draft pick that they made today. We're going to get to a few more, but I honestly really, really, and I'm not saying they're going to make the NHL next year and they're going to be, elite players or anything like that, but they drafted a lot of really good support players that I think will be NHLers at some point in the next couple of years. So I really like this one. Again, a big, sturdy player.
Yeah, let's dive into a few other ones here. You can see I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Rylan Fellinger from OHL's Flint Firebirds, the first defenseman who is 6'4", ladies and gentlemen. He was the 184th pick. And again, kind of backtracking a little bit in case you were curious. Tyler Hopkins' stats, 51 points in 67 games. Will Belly, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Will Bell, whatever ends up being, 10 points in 28 games. So again, a couple of project players could be good, like not super high octane point wise, but you're not going to get that at the the draft picks that they're actually at here. And let us know out of the ones so far that we've covered, which is your favorite, because there's a lot of course, firepower. And I'm seeing a lot of people online on Twitter and people who are obviously more privy to draft information calling these steals, a lot of these steals for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, Hopkins being probably, the biggest steal yet of the draft, at least compared to, consensus as opposed to, some other things there. But let us know what your thoughts are on that. And Harry Nancy as well goes 153rd overall to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are drafting tall this draft. 6'3", almost 186 pounds. A slick playmaker who pushes the pace of play and blends physicality with high-end handling flashes. An extremely raw but exciting prospect. A C grade, but you're getting him at 153. This is another interesting one. The Leafs seem to be playing for upside rather than, full grown, a high floor. And, Cowan, for example, being ready to play, although he was a bit of a high upside play as well.
Yep.
They drafted another prospect here. A lot of picks for the Leafs, and this one is an extremely raw prospect, but has an exciting upside.
I think Nancy is a fun one, right? Like another big player. Clearly there was an agenda here for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're getting size in this draft, but another big player. And I heard, the word thrown around again, steal, from a lot of analysts on this one and a lot of people that, write about prospects year round. So this is another good one for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, a raw prospect in terms of he's probably going to have to work with the development staff, but he has all the tools that you'd want to, be an impact player, and he can move the puck, right? Like sometimes you look at some guys who have this size and they're like, can you skate? Can you move the puck? And some of these things, we know you can go to the front of the net and all these things, but can you do the other things? Can you move the puck? Can you skate well? And it looks like he's going to be able to do that. And again, this could be an interesting one. Like you mentioned, this is a high risk maybe play a little bit to a degree, but at the end of the day, I think it could end up working out. And this is another guy who I feel like his skills can translate to the NHL level. That's the biggest thing. A lot of these guys that they drafted today, a lot of their skills can translate to the NHL level pretty seamlessly, which I think is a good thing. And, it's going to be fun to watch. And similar to Koblar, a guy that maybe a lot of people maybe didn't have on their list, or a guy that, maybe you didn't think the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to pick, but I think could work out very well for the team.
23 points, 67 games, folks. This is an ongoing fluid situation here, and we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news surrounding Mitch Marner, surrounding, of course, the draft picks, and as they continue to make more sneaky signings, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest. So let us know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.